feeling like the world of digital assets and security feels like trying to drink from a fire hose. Just too much info, not enough clarity. Well, this deep dive is your shortcut.
Exactly. We're here to help you navigate those complex topics, pull out the essential insights, and get you informed quickly and thoroughly, without the overwhelm.
And today, we are tackling a really important security question. How do you protect your staked digital assets with that classic, super secure hot and cold wallet setup? It sounds simple, but applying it to modern staking systems, that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, it really does. And all the insights we're sharing today, they come from a recent paper by Mario Larangera. Mario is a research fellow at IOG and also a specially appointed associate professor at the Institute of Science Tokyo.
Okay.
And this work, it was actually accepted as a short paper for SecretBT 2025, which is a respected security conference. And the full version is available online too, in the ePrint archive and the IOG library website, if you want to dig deeper later.
Good to know. So our mission today is really to unpack Mario's paper. We want to understand why simply slapping a traditional hot-cold setup onto a system like, say, Cardano, which uses delegated proof of stake, doesn't quite work. What are the specific challenges? And then what is the elegant and secure solution he proposes? One that leverages some of the unique design choices in these systems.
Yeah. Let's dive in and figure this out together.
Okay, so let's start by laying some groundwork. We talk about hot wallets and cold wallets all the time. What's the core concept there, really, and why do people use them?
Well, it basically boils down to a fundamental trade-off, right, between convenience and security. A hot wallet is online, it's connected to the internet, ready to go.
Right.
This makes sending transactions super fast, super easy.
Right.
But precisely because it's online, it's more vulnerable, exposed to network-based attacks, malware, hacking attempts, that sort of thing.
So kind of like having your wallet in your back pocket, easy access, but maybe not the safest place for your life savings?
Exactly. That's a good analogy. And a cold wallet is the opposite. It's offline. Think of a dedicated hardware device you unplug, or maybe even just private keys written down somewhere really secure.
Okay.
Because it's never connected, it's incredibly secure against those online threats. The catch, though, it's kind of a pain to use. You can't just sign a transaction instantly if the key is locked away offline.
Right. High security, low usability. Got it. Now, this idea of hot-cold security isn't brand new, is it? The paper mentions it was formerly studied for older systems like Bitcoin, which use proof of work. What did that look like?
That's right. Researchers like Das and others did significant work on this back in 2019 and 2021. In the proof of work world, like Bitcoin, the focus was often on how a hot wallet could generate new receiving addresses for the cold wallet.
Okay, receiving addresses.
Yeah, they use key derivation methods like those standardized in things like BIP32.
BIP32. Okay, unpack that a bit. What does that mean for someone maybe familiar with crypto but not the super deep technical standards?
Good point. Think of BIP32 as a standard way to generate a whole tree of unique addresses from a single master key. The clever part is, the hot wallet, knowing only the master public key, not the private one, can generate all the derived public addresses.
Ah, okay.
So someone can send funds to these fresh addresses, and the cold wallet, which holds the master private key, can later access those funds. And it can do that without ever needing to bring that master private key online just to receive.
Ah, I see. So the hot wallet helps you get money into the cold wallet securely by generating the addresses. But spending from the cold wallet still needs that cold key to come online, which is the risky part.
Precisely. Now, let's shift gears to modern systems using delegated proof of stake, or DPoS. These are quite different.
Like the system Cardano uses, for example?
Yes, that's a prime example. DPoS is a type of proof of stake designed for, well, scalability and wider participation. Instead of everyone needing to run a complex validator node, users can delegate their stake, basically their token holdings, to professional stake pools.
Right, the stake pools.
And these pools validate transactions and secure the network on behalf of all the delegators.
And the really cool part is you don't actually lock up your funds when you delegate, right? You can still spend them.
Exactly. That's a key difference from some other proof-of-stake systems out there. In the model this paper focuses on, which was really pioneered by Karakostas and others back in 2020, and heavily influenced systems like Cardano's stake pool economy. Delegation happens via special messages, certificates that you submit to the blockchain. You assign your staking rights to a pool without actually transferring or locking your coins. Your funds stay in your wallet, fully spendable.
Okay, so in proof of work, it was mainly about managing spending keys for simple transactions. In this DPoS model, I've got funds I can spend and stake that I can delegate. How does that change things cryptographically?
Right, this is where that Caracostas work is really foundational. They recognize that for DPoS, you need more than just a single key pair. It's more complex. Their wallet design introduced the idea of having two distinct key pairs per wallet.
Two pairs. Okay.
One pair for signing spending transactions, that's your payment key, and a completely separate pair, specifically for signing those stake delegation certificates and managing staking rights. That's your staking key.
Ah.
And addresses in this system are also richer. They can carry more information, like which staking key they're linked to.
Wow. Okay. So in PowerBU, it was generally one key pair did everything. But in this DPoS model, it's already split into two pairs per wallet. One for my money, one for my staking vote, essentially. This feels like it might be important later on.
It is absolutely central, both to the problem and the solution Mario proposes. This two-key structure is the canvas we're working with here.
Okay, so traditional hot-cold worked okay-ish for receiving in the simpler PowerBU world. But now we have DPoS with stake delegation and this two-key system. What happens when you try to combine hot-cold security with that setup? This is where it gets interesting and complicated, I'm guessing.
You guessed right. The central problem Mario Laranjera's paper really tackles is that applying those old PowerW hot-cold ideas directly to this DPoS world, with its specific delegation model and that two-key structure, it just doesn't naturally give you the same security guarantees. The existing analysis doesn't really cover the nuances of staking.
So, okay, let's say I want to keep my main stack of stake tokens in cold storage for maximum security, but I still want to delegate them to earn rewards. What kind of headaches am I going to run into? What breaks?
Well, the paper highlights several specific, pretty tricky challenges. First one, cold stake delegation. If your cold wallet holds the keys linked to your staked funds, how do you actually sign and submit that initial delegation certificate? That certificate needs a signature, right? Typically from the staking key associated with those funds. But that staking key is supposed to be offline.
Okay, yeah, that's a fundamental problem right there. The key needs to be online to sign the thing that delegates the stake. What about the rewards? If my stake is cold, where do the rewards go?
That one, thankfully, is less of a puzzle. The delegation certificate itself can actually specify which address should receive the staking rewards. So you can just put a cold wallet address there, and the network sends the rewards straight to it. No need for the cold wallet to come online for that part.
Okay, good. That's one less thing to worry about. But what if I'm already delegating my cold stake and I decide I want to change pools? You know, cold stake redelegation. Doesn't that require submitting a new certificate?
It absolutely does. And you hit the exact same wall. Signing that new certificate requires the relevant staking key. If that key is supposed to be locked away in cold storage, how do you do it without bringing it online and, well, compromising its coldness?
It sounds like any action involving signing with the cold staking key is basically blocked by the whole point of cold storage.
Precisely. And then there's a really critical security question that comes up. If we built some new hot-cold system for DPoS, does it still provide the same robust security properties? The original Caracostas et al. Design had these strong guarantees, proven in a framework called universally composable security. Does a new design preserve that composable security?
Universally composable security. Okay, that sounds fancy. What's the basic idea there, in simple terms?
Think of it as a really high standard in cryptography. It basically means you've proven your system is secure, not just on its own, in isolation, but also when it's connected to and interacting with other complex, maybe even malicious systems out there in the wild.
Like proving your secure lock still works, even if it's on a door in a busy, unpredictable city, not just in a lab.
Exactly like that. It's about security in a real-world context.
Okay, so we need to make sure adding these hot-cold layers doesn't somehow break the fundamental security guarantees of the wallet design itself.
Exactly. We need it to still compose securely. And finally, there's a practical point the paper raises. Submitting those certificates to the blockchain costs a tiny transaction fee. If all your significant funds are locked up in the cold wallet, where does the fee money come from? Does the hot wallet need some funds just to pay for the cold wallet's delegation actions?
Ah, that's an interesting practical snag. Didn't think of that. Okay, so we have these core challenges. Signing the initial delegation, signing redelegation, making sure it's still provably secure, and figuring out how to pay the fees. And it all seems to stem from that basic conflict. Cold storage means offline queues, but delegation needs online signatures from the staking key. This isn't just a simple port of the old idea.
No, it really requires a genuinely novel approach, a rethink.
So how does Mario Laranjera's paper solve these puzzles then? What is this protocol OOTC?
Right, so the paper introduces a new wallet design, which they call Protocol OOTC. And alongside it, they provide a formal definition of what hot-cold secure staking should actually mean in this DPoS context. They call that functionality FHC.
Okay, protocol HC and functionality FHC. What's the big idea? How does it get around needing that cold staking key online all the time?
This is where it gets really clever. It hinges on leveraging that two-key structure from the Caracosta's design we talked about earlier, the payment key and the staking key. Instead of just thinking one hot wallet, one cold wallet like in POW, PayDepC is built around the idea of 4 distinct key pairs.
4 key pairs. Okay, tell me more. What are they?
Okay, so you still have your standard hot wallet keys, a regular hot payment key pair for everyday spending, maybe small amounts, and a regular hot staking key pair, perhaps for delegating smaller amounts you keep hot or for paying those transaction fees we mentioned.
Okay, hot payment, hot staking. That's 2. What about the cold side?
Then for your cold storage, you also have 2 pairs. You have a cold staking key pair, and then you have a special stateful hot-cold payment key pair. This last one is designed using an advanced derivation method inspired by the earlier POW work from Daz et al., but adapted for this DPoS setup.
Stateful hot-cold payment key pair. Okay, what makes that one special? What does stateful mean here?
Good question. The stateful part essentially means it needs to keep track of which addresses it has generated. This is important for how it derives keys securely over time. It allows the cold part of the system to securely manage generating new receiving addresses without revealing the main private key, kind of like the POW idea we discussed.
Okay.
But the crucial insight here, the real trick, is the separation and different handling of the cold payment key versus the cold staking key.
Okay. So I've got hot payment, hot staking, cold staking, and this special stateful cold payment key. How does having a separate cold staking key help with the delegation problem? That still sounds like it needs to sign things.
This is the core of the solution. Think about what needs to be absolutely, positively 100% offline and secure in cold storage. It's the key that controls spending your main funds, right? That's the master secret key for the cold payment pair, what the paper calls MSK cold. Protocol HC is designed so that only this cold payment key needs to be kept strictly offline and manage its state for derivation.
Okay, so the money key stays locked down. What about the cold staking key then?
The cold wallet staking secret key, cold, while generated as part of the cold setup, is actually handled by the protocol itself in a specific, clever way.
Handled by the protocol. Does that mean the protocol can somehow use it for delegation without the cold hardware device needing to boot up and sign a general transaction?
Exactly. That's the breakthrough. The protocol facilitates the necessary actions for delegation, like generating and signing that delegation certificate by interacting with the cold staking key. But it does this separately from how it would handle the cold payment key. The cold payment key remains completely locked away, strictly for receiving funds, never signing outgoing payments while cold.
But the cold staking key.
The cold staking key, however, is managed by the KeyHT protocol in such a way that it can be used to sign those specific delegation messages when needed, without compromising the security of the cold payment funds.
Wow, okay, so the separation allows the staking key to be accessible to the protocol's specific delegation logic, while the payment key stays truly deeply offline for maximum fund security. That is clever. It's like it takes that existing 2-key structure from Caracosta's and finds a new way to use that separation for hot-cold purposes.
It's really elegant because it builds directly on the existing cryptographic primitives defined in that foundational Caracosta's work. The HEC protocol extends their procedures for things like generating different types of addresses. The paper mentions base, pointer, exile address types, which are just different ways addresses can be structured to encode information or link to staking keys. It extends hierarchical key generation, using that stateful HTC method for the cold payment key specifically, and it extends wallet recovery procedures, all adapted for this new 2-wallet 4-key pair structure.
And you mentioned the cold payment key stays strictly offline for signing. Does that mean you still can't just spend funds directly from the cold wallet using this HC setup?
That's correct. And it's a key security feature of Protocol PageC. There is explicitly no interface defined within the protocol for issuing spending transactions signed by the cold payment key. If you want to spend funds held by the cold addresses, you'd have to employ a separate process, perhaps bringing the cold wallet fully online in a secure environment, or maybe transferring funds out via a transaction initiated and paid for by the hot wallet, depending on the specific implementation.
Right.
The cold payment key's security relies heavily on its staying offline and only being used for that internal stateful derivation logic.
Got it. So the security of the cold payment key is preserved because it never signs spending transactions while cold. But the cold staking key can be used by the protocol to manage delegation. This seems to directly address those big challenges we listed earlier.
It really does. It's designed specifically for that.
Okay, so they propose this protocol, HZ. Sounds clever. But is it formally proven secure? Like, how do we know it actually works as intended and doesn't introduce some other weird vulnerability?
Yeah, great question. That's where the paper's security analysis comes in. They provide a formal proof that Protocol HC is secure, and they do it within that high standard we mentioned earlier, the Universally Composable, or UC framework.
Okay, the UC framework again. So the proof essentially shows that HC actually does what it's supposed to do, achieving that secure hot-cold staking functionality they defined as FHC, and it does it securely, right? Assuming, of course, that the underlying crypto building blocks, like the key, derivation, and address generation, are themselves secure.
Exactly. The proof demonstrates that HC achieves the desired security properties of a hot-cold DPoS wallet, contingent on those standard cryptographic assumptions holding true for the underlying components it uses. It shows it composes securely.
Okay, fantastic. So let's circle back then. How does this formally proven Peiqi's protocol specifically address those challenges we outlined at the start? Let's tick them off.
All right. First, cold stake delegation and redelegation. Solved. By separating the staking and payment keys, the protocol can access and use the cold staking key to sign the necessary delegation or redelegation certificates. It does this without needing the cold payment key to come online or interact with general transaction signing.
So you don't need to expose the part of your cold storage that controls the actual spending, just to delegate or change pools.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That core conflict is resolved.
Okay. What about the rewards payment challenge?
Still straightforward, as we noted earlier. The delegation certificate points the rewards directly to a cold address. No key interaction needed from the cold side just to receive those rewards. That works fine.
Good. And the composable security, making sure it doesn't break the underlying wallet security.
Yes, that's what the formal proof in the UC framework explicitly confirms. The design of HEC maintains the essential security properties established by the Caracas's et al. Framework, even with this new hot-cold functionality layered on top.
Excellent. And finally, the practical point about hot wallet funds for fees.
That remains a practical necessity, yeah.
Yeah.
The hot wallet still needs to hold a small amount of the native token. It needs that to cover the transaction fees for submitting the delegation certificates or redelegation certificates onto the blockchain ledger. The protocol doesn't magically make fees disappear.
Right, someone's got to pay the piper.
Okay.
Now, the paper did mention something about limitations, didn't it? Certain advanced features that might still need more interaction.
Yes, they do make a note about that. They point out that for some very specific and restrictive types of address behavior or certain kinds of address malleability defined in the broader Caracas's et al. Framework,
Right.
in those more niche advanced scenarios, you might actually need to access a derived cold payment secret key component, escapes baked to JNI, to satisfy the strongest theoretical security definitions.
Mm-hmm.
In those specific cases, the current Peiqi protocol wouldn't cover it directly from the offline state. They suggest that you might need some form of limited, secure hardware interaction for those scenarios. Perhaps using things like secure channels, maybe like the optical channels mentioned in some related work by Dowsley and others in 2022.
Okay, so for edge cases involving very complex address interactions, you might need extra hardware help down the line. But for the standard, practical levels of address use and delegation.
Exactly. For the scenarios most users will actually encounter when delegating their state from cold storage, PHEC provides a secure way to do hot-cold staking. It achieves this without needing the main cold payment key to come online just for staking actions.
So really, in a nutshell, Protocol HC successfully brings robust hot-cold security to DPoS staking, particularly for systems built on that Caracas's framework like Cardano. And it does this by intelligently exploiting the already present separation of payment and staking keys within that wallet design. It's quite neat.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's a significant piece of research, I think, because it bridges a critical security gap. It helps users who want to keep their main stake holding securely offline, but still actively participate in network security and earn rewards through delegation.
What a deep dive. Okay, so we've really peeled back the layers here. We started with the basics of hot-cold wallets in the old POW world. Then we looked at the specific DPoS puzzles, the challenges presented by stake delegation, and that two-key wallet structure. And finally, we broke down how this research from Mario Larum-Nogueira provides a secure, quite elegant solution, Protocol HC, by actually leveraging that exact same two-key design in a new way.
Yeah, the key insight truly is that separation of powers within the wallet design itself, having those distinct keys for spending versus staking. That's what unlocks the ability for the protocol to manage cold stake delegation and redelegation without ever needing the cool payment key, the one controlling your actual funds, to leave the safety of cold storage for those specific actions.
It's really important work by Mario Larangera, accepted at SecretPT 2025. And as you said, the full paper is out there if you, the listener, are curious about the formal proofs and all the technical details. It really shows how clever cryptographic design can open up new possibilities for security and usability in these complex systems.
Absolutely. And, as wallet technology continues to evolve, maybe even incorporating some of that limited hardware interaction for certain advanced features down the line, like the paper hinted at.
Yeah. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How will you choose to manage and secure your own staked assets in the future, given these evolving tools and techniques? Something to mull over.